welcome to the meeting number 2 of the Standing Committee, House of Commons Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Development. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. Before we continue, I'd like to ask all in-person participants to consult the guidelines written on the cards on the table. These measures are in place to help prevent audio and feedback incidents and to protect the health and safety of all participants, including the interpreters. You'll also notice a QR code on the card which links to a short awareness video. I'd also like to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. And for those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you're not speaking. For those on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you can select the appropriate channel for interpretation, either Floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. And for members on Zoom, please use the raised hand function. The clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best as we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. Before hearing from today's witnesses, the committee must first address an important matter concerning its own business. Your subcommittee met on Thursday, September 18, to consider the business of the committee and agreed to make various recommendations. The clerk distributed yesterday the subcommittee report with a proposed calendar for the next few weeks until December. Is there any comments on the report and the calendar? And if not, does the committee approve the report? Yes, Ms. Fortier.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for opening this meeting, and I'd like to recognize my colleagues. It's the beginning of the parliamentary session, and it's a real pleasure for me to see everybody here today. The two motions that were presented by Member of Parliament Alexis Bonnel-Duceppe, there is a mention that I would like to add a friendly amendment, I would say, to ensure that we add that pursuant to 109, the committee asked the government to table a complete response to the report. So to add that to both of the motions, one about the Africa study and one about the Haiti study, just to ensure that there is a response from the government. So the report is fine. It's just that amendment, a friendly amendment.
Thank you, Madame Fortier. Is there agreement on that?
Yes.
On that comment? Okay, thank you. And we'll move to approval now. The clerk will follow up with members after today's meeting to solicit your witnesses for each study. The deadline to submit witnesses for the study on the Canadian Arctic Strategy is this Friday. Please get your witnesses in before then. Deadlines for the other studies will be specified in the clerk's upcoming emails. On a side note, I'd also like to inform the committee that we've received an invitation from the Embassy of Finland in Ottawa for an informal meeting with the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Finnish Parliament, which will be visiting Ottawa on November 17 to 18. As discussed, as discussed with the vice chairs and MP Mona Fortier, an informal meeting will be planned with our Finnish counterparts on Tuesday, November 17th, from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. And of course, the clerk will follow up by email in due time with more information on this. Please note that our committee has also received some additional invitations. An invitation from the World Food Programme Deputy Executive Director, Karl Skau, on Monday, September 29th for a meeting. And the President of the International Committee of the Red Cross is here on Friday, October the 24th. I'd now like to welcome our witnesses to discuss the situation in Haiti and Canada's response. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, Mark Richardson, Director General, Central America and Caribbean Bureau, welcome. And Ian Miles, Executive Director, Haiti Division, welcome. Up to 5 minutes will be given for opening remarks to each of you, after which we will proceed with rounds of questions. I now invite you to make an opening statement of up to 5 minutes. Please proceed.
Bonjour. Je m'appelle.
Good morning. My name is Mark Richardson. I'm Director General for Central America and Caribbean Bureau at Global Affairs Canada. And with me today is, as the chair has said, is my colleague Ian Miles, Executive Director of the Haiti Division. Today, I'll be giving you an overview of the situation in Haiti as well as about Canada's response. The situation in Haiti is grave. Since the assassination of President Moïse in 2021, the country has become plunged into a deep and multifaceted crisis. It is now at a critical point, with gang violence and chaos intensifying every day. Despite the courageous efforts of the Haitian National Police and the Multinational Security Support Mission, called MMAS in French or MSSM in English, led by Kenya, gangs are now controlling over 90% of the capital and have extended their grip to other regions of the country as well. The gangs are exceptionally well-funded and equipped, and this is thanks to their kidnapping, extortion, and drug and arms trafficking activities. They have become increasingly brutal. They recruit children, and they use sexual violence, massacres, and intimidation in order to ensure their grip. Over 8,700 individuals have been killed since 2024 alone. And now I'm going to switch into English.
Similarly challenging. The mandate of the Transitional Presidential Council, established in April 2024, is set to expire in February. It is increasingly unlikely that credible elections will be held before then. Haitian citizens are bearing the brunt of this crisis. Over half the population urgently needs humanitarian assistance, and over 1.3 million are internally displaced by the violence. The crisis also has impacts beyond Haiti, including for Canada's own national interests and those of Haiti's neighbours. Haiti's instability creates ideal conditions for transnational crime to thrive. Illicit flows of money, drugs, and weapons are expanding, and Haitian gangs are building ties to criminal networks in the region and even in Canada. Desperate conditions are driving irregular migration as Haitians seek safety and opportunity elsewhere. And the extremely high-risk business environment is hindering economic recovery. Canada's response to the crisis has been comprehensive and supported by multiple departments and agencies. Since 2022, we've invested over $450 million towards peace and security, humanitarian and development initiatives. On the security front, both the Canadian Armed Forces and the RCMP have played important roles in delivering equipment, training, and logistical support for the MSSM and the Haitian National Police. And despite the challenging operational environment, dedicated Canadian and international organizations continue to work hard to alleviate suffering, provide basic services, and fight corruption and human rights abuses. Among other things, for example, Canadian international assistance helped deliver daily hot meals to over 100,000 school children last year. As we approach the expiry date of the SSM's mandate on October 2nd, the international community is at a crossroads and must chart a new path forward. To this effect, the U.S. and Panama recently tabled a UN Security Council resolution that would replace the MSSM with an expanded international force supported by a robust UN support office. The goal is to better leverage the UN's unique expertise and operational capacity to help stabilize Haiti. Canada is currently engaging in intensive diplomatic advocacy to support the resolution. For example, later this afternoon, the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Anand, will co-chair a high-level meeting on Haiti at the UN General Assembly to further galvanize international support. I will now switch to French. Bien que la stabilisation demeure la priorité.
While stabilization remains the immediate priority, Canada is continuing to collaborate with its Haitian and international partners so as to attack the profound causes of the recurring crises in Haiti. This includes battling corruption, as well as making efforts to reinforce and reform the economy, the legal system, and the security sector. I'd like to thank the members of this committee for their attention and their commitment to this significant and constantly changing issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Mr. Richardson. I now turn to Mr. Miles. Oh, sorry. Okay. We'll now proceed to questions, starting with MP Ziad Abultaif. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the witnesses for appearing today. Obviously, the situation is at all fronts nothing good to report about Haiti. At all levels, security, humanitarian, and the state of the nation itself as a failed nation, as we learn. We are talking about the situation. We're not mentioning why this has happened, who's the beneficiary, who's feeding these gang groups, what is the political side of this that really causing the international community to stand now and think of sending international troops through United Nations to sort of either settle the situation or at least ease off a little bit on the pressure that's coming on the people and the international community at large. So the political question is this: who's behind these gangs? Who's backing those gangs? And who's the beneficiary of it?
Mr. Chair, I think that's an excellent question that the member has asked in terms of who is benefiting. What we do know is that the gangs themselves are obviously benefiting, and that certain members of the Haitian elite have also been benefiting. And for that reason, we have put in place sanctions, autonomous sanctions against 34 individuals, which is the most of any member or any country around the world, which are having a positive impact. But perhaps I'll turn to my colleague Ian, who may be able to provide additional details.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me through the mask. I'm afraid I came down with a cold and I don't want to share it. Mr. Chair, the situation in Haiti has been complex since the country got its independence in 1804. Without going too much into history, the history has been of a very small elite controlling economic and political power. And that's been true to present day. So the origins of the gangs are mostly in terms of armed thugs, essentially, who were put in place by those same elites, initially to compete with each other over control of territory, control of markets, control of regions. And essentially, to put it simply, the gangs themselves realized at some point they were the ones that had the guns. And with the political turmoil, with the assassination of the president and the subsequent turmoil, there was a political vacuum, and the gangs took advantage of that. The status quo benefits primarily those gangs right now. I think the political and economic elite feel very vulnerable right now because of this situation. The gangs are becoming quite wealthy because of the extortion opportunities, the drug trafficking opportunities, the arms trafficking opportunities. And so the status quo right now is just very profitable for them. Thank you.
Well, thanks. On the micro part of it, you've answered the question. On the macro part of it is beyond the local players or the domestic players. Now the United States and Panama are proposing to have United Nations troops, and Canada is doing some diplomatic work to make sure that this will have consent or at least agreement among the international community. Is there any outside government is backing these groups that we know of? Are we sure that the forming the mission with troops and peacekeepers in a way is going to really be going smoothly and is going to happen?
Mr. Chair, we are not aware of, at this time, of any state-sponsored support for the gangs. Obviously, transnational crime has woven its own networks across the region, and that is being played out in Haiti. But in terms of any state-sponsored support, we're unaware of that at this time.
Thank you. Canada has sent close to $500 million, $480 million. The last tranche is to enhance the security and to support the security mission to keep things under the MSSM under control. How much Canada is willing to go further in supporting the future mission if this to happen? Have Canada talk about any commitment to that? Do we have anything in mind what Canada's commitment will be for if the UN troops is going to be taking place? And are we considering to send any or to participate in troops physically on the ground?
Mr. Chair, while I can't speculate in terms of what Canada's future engagement might be, I can say that currently we are working very hard to help support the passage of the resolution that the United States and Panama have passed. To date, the more than $450 million that we've provided in international assistance has been focused predominantly on security and humanitarian and development needs. That's since 2022. Roughly, we've provided $140 million in 2022, approximately $170 million in 2023. And then although our data from our CFO is still coming in, the 2024-2025 numbers are around $150 million from what we understand.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ziad. You're out of time. We will now move to the next questioner, Mr. Blair. You have 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome to our guests from Global Affairs. You have one of the most challenging tasks, and Canada's involvement with the support of the Haitian people and in response both to their security and humanitarian requirements. I think there's a long and proud history for Canada in that contribution, but it remains a very significant challenge. My area of inquiry this morning will basically center on 3 areas. Mr. Richardson, you just spoke about the fairly significant financial commitment that Canada has made to both security and humanitarian assistance for Haiti, some $450 million over the past 3 years. And I would like some understanding, because I think there are many countries that have been contributing, none, quite frankly, to the extent that Canada does in many respects, but at the same time, the level of coordination that you're able to provide. We are concerned with civil society in Haiti. It does not really, frankly, possess a functional government, and although the PNH, I think, struggles valiantly in an effort to maintain security, it remains a daunting task, and as you've indicated, 90% of the Port-au-Prince, for example, is under the control of the gangs. And so a little bit of the effort that you're making to make sure that with our financial contributions to both humanitarian and security, that there is some level of coordination with others who are contributing and with Haitian partners, if they do exist in Haiti.
Mr. Chair, thank you to the member for recognizing how challenging the task in front of us is with Haiti, because it is indeed incredibly complex and challenging. In terms of coordination with other countries and other donors, we've been leveraging our presidency of the G7 in order to try and coordinate efforts under that remit. We actively work with the OAS and obviously within the UN construct as well. On the ground, we have also played traditionally a leadership role in the last number of years in terms of, in particular, helping to coordinate assistance on the security front. And at this point, I turn to my colleague Ian to perhaps give some more details on that.
Yes, thank you very much. The coordination efforts have gone actually better than I would expect, in the sense that there's not that many actors involved in Haiti, and that's one of the challenges. the lion's share of the support on the security side is coming from the U.S. and from Canada, to a lesser extent France, increasingly from the Organization of American States, and of course the UN. The current international security force that's led by Kenya, it's about 1,000 individuals, primarily police. They're endorsed by the UN Security Council, but it's not UN-led, which means that both the troops and the funds to cover their costs are through voluntary contributions. So there's some key players in that. The contributing countries are primarily Kenya. It's about 3/4 of that force, but significant contributions, or at least important symbolic contributions, from countries like Guatemala, El Salvador, Jamaica, and Bahamas. So in terms of the MSSM itself, the multinational support mission, there's coordination internal to that. We're also working at the OAS and at the UN to try to ensure that that continues. Canada played a coordination role in the country itself, particularly to ensure coordination between the support going to the Haitian National Police and the support going to the multinational force, trying to ensure that interoperability of the equipment, things like radio, ammunition, weapons, etc. And so we played a key bridging role there. There's a very good direct line, but the HNP in particular is quite weak as an organization. I think they struggle to play that convening role.
Thank you very much. And I'm aware, for example, that the Canadian Armed Forces has contributed through Project Helios in the training of the MSS contingent from Kenya, and as well that the RCMP have been very much involved in providing training in Jamaica to the PNH. But at the same time, the proposal and for this gang suppression initiative that the United States is now bringing forward, the MSS has been chronically understaffed and underfunded since its inception, and I don't disagree. By the way, that my sense is that it's because it is a voluntary contribution rather than a Section 7 UN resolution that might have made this a UN mission. Is it anticipated with what the United States is proposing for a gang suppression initiative that it would become, instead of just a voluntary contribution, or rather that something that would be funded through the UN?
Mr. Chair, what the resolution has proposed is actually a hybrid approach, where the successor to the MSSM would be, as you mentioned, the gang suppression force, which would rely on voluntary contributions, as the MSSM has done so far, in terms of personnel, equipment, and stipends to cover the costs of the personnel. It would be further supported, as proposed in the resolution, in the draft resolution that we've seen, by a UN support office, which would be funded through assessed contributions, meaning that it would have financial stability in order to help with procurement, transport, and a variety of other costs. As I understand it, this has been one of the main constraints of the success and the ability to galvanize or attract contributions from other members, has been the lack of support, logistical support, and instability there. So, as proposed now, the resolution would seek to address those main challenges.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now proceed to Mr. Duceppe. Vous avez 6 minutes.
You have 6 minutes. Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Richardson, for being here today. It's very important to us on a subject that, as my friend Bill Blair has said, this is a complex topic, but it's an urgent one. Right now, the situation in Haiti is such. Last Tuesday, the Trump government said that Canada is playing an increased role in stabilization of Haiti, and Madame Annan responded that it's premature to talk about sending Canadian troops, but she said she'd continue this conversation in New York during the United Nations Assembly meetings. Do you know whether there's been any communication between your department or others regarding sending Canadian troops to Haiti? Chair, thank you for the question. What I can confirm is that we will do our best to support the Americans and the Panamanians with the resolution. In terms of the future, it's still too soon to make any comments about that. And our efforts are focused on the resolution to see ultimately what we would have there. So I understand that you are not in a position to say what Madame Annan's announcement will say today in New York or what her presence will indicate. I know that there's going to be something about Haiti. Might there be a response to the question that I asked you without telling us what we'll hear this afternoon? Will we be receiving an answer to the last question I asked you regarding sending Canadian troops? Up to this point, this is not something that we have discussed at the government. And this was not a request that we received or a question that we received from the Americans. Our efforts are being focused on the resolution. I can tell you that in the past, there had been a request to deploy personnel, military personnel, and we consulted stakeholders, including the Haitian diaspora here and in Haiti, regarding the situation. And at that time, it was decided that our efforts should focus on attracting the support and contribution of members and Haiti and the various solutions for Haiti on various multilateral platforms. Thank you. You're referring to the Haitian diaspora, and it's quite considerable here, especially in Quebec, but I know that in Ontario as well, there are a lot of people of Haitian origin, and elsewhere in Canada. That's why we have a very special relationship with Haiti. I was and continue to be vice president, and when we were, or vice chair, when we did a study on the Haiti situation at the Subcommittee on International Human Rights, we saw that it was complicated because the witnesses that we had, and this reflects the situation in the diaspora as well, didn't agree amongst themselves about the necessity of Canadian intervention and how to intervene. There were several people who testified, and each testimony differed from the one before. But there was one thing that I retained. There's one quote, a witness who said, "The Canadian process has to reflect its own values and its own vision of human rights, global security. It should not be just following the U.S. to try to resolve the problems in Haiti." This is something that I think we have to keep in mind from that 2023 study. Taking the leadership that Canada once had, especially when it came to Haiti, is it your impression that we are directly aligning ourselves with the U.S. position, or are we, in fact, truly elaborating a foreign affairs position for Haiti that is particular to Canada?
Perhaps I'll take this question in English, respond to this question in English. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to the member for sharing that quote and that question. I think in all things we are guided by Canadian national interests, and we look at, in terms of what we're doing in Haiti currently, and obviously what will be considered for the future, as well as by the situation in Haiti itself and the situation of the Haitian people. We are thankful to the United States and I would say encouraged by the leadership position that they have recently taken in proposing a hybrid solution or hybrid approach to trying to bring stability, security stability to Haiti right now. And particularly encouraged that it involves a multilateral element. So a UN support office has been proposed by the Americans. But I come back to the point that we're supporting this because we believe it is in the Haitian interest, that it has been supported by the Haitian government itself, this proposal, and because we believe it will also help us to protect and advance Canadian interests as well.
Malheureusement, you've run out of time.
Unfortunately, you've run out of time.
Proceed to the next round of questioning, starting with Mr. Majumdar. You have 5 minutes, and welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for your testimony so far. Of the more than $400 million that Canada has committed to Haiti since 2022, as best as possible, knowing that gangs control 85% of Port-au-Prince, what safeguards are in place in making sure that aid is not being diverted to the gangs and their political backers?
Mr. Chair, part of our work as we look at our international assistance to Haiti is to pick the right partners and to ensure that they have robust mechanisms and controls in place in order to ensure that the funds that we are providing, the Canadian taxpayers are providing, are in fact being dedicated towards the ends that we envisage them to be. This is one of the reasons why we tend to work with large partners like the UNODC, the UN Office for Drugs and Crime, as well as with the OAS and other recognized partners. For our own specific programs where we give directly to Canadian NGOs or Haitian NGOs, we do regularly have audits of their programs in order to ensure that the funds are spent as we have been told they will be.
Thank you. Then for the kind of capital that goes through the MSSM and other UN agencies, what safeguards do they have in place to ensure that you are aware of, and if you could get a bit granular, I'd appreciate it, that aid diversion is not happening through UN agency aid distribution?
Mr. Chair, for that I'll turn to my colleague, Ian Miles.
Mr. Chair, it's a good question. It's one that gets attention around the world in terms of safeguards within the UN system. There are billions of dollars that get provided through the UN in terms of international assistance, particularly on the humanitarian side. So one advantage of that is we're not the only ones looking for accountability, ensuring that there are safeguards in place, both financial in terms of program value for money, as well as questions of abuse of power, sexual exploitation and abuse. So there's good safeguards in there. There's processes for investigations that can be done to verify facts when allegations are made. And so we have quite a high degree of confidence in those because they're something that are not Haiti specific. They're really from around the world.
Thank you. If I might,
of course,
drill a little bit deeper into this with the time that I have with you. What new oversight or monitoring tools has Canada advanced in, let's say, since 2022, to make sure that our taxpayer money is not repeating the same mistakes you just described? Sorry.
Chair, I'd like to say that I think we're all acutely aware that there's been lessons learned along the way in terms of how our aid is delivered. And in that sense, I can say confidently that there have been no incidents in terms of misuse of Canadian resources that I'm aware of since 2022. In terms of the security missions themselves, we're aware that there have been issues that have come up in the past, and there's been particular mechanisms, additional mechanisms that Canada has pushed for, particularly on the area of sexual exploitation and abuse. We've co-located a gender advisor with the force commander to advise the force commander on making a safe environment, first and foremost, for the women who make up part of the MSSM, who have come from other countries, but also mechanisms to ensure safeguards against exploitation of Haitian citizens. We also have a specialist deployed at the MSS Support Office in Washington whose specialization is investigative resources for sexual exploitation and abuse to ensure that the mechanisms are in place to respond quickly should any incidents apply, as well as to prevent incidents from happening.
Short question.
With elections in 2 months, do you believe the conditions exist for a credible vote?
Mr. Chair, just to clarify on the question, you're referring to elections in Haiti, or?
Yes, am I wrong?
As I understand it, Mr. Chair, the Transitional Presidential Council's mandate is set to end in February. And at this point, part of the challenges that we face and concerns that we have with the situation in Haiti is that it does not actually seem to be a viable path forward in terms of having elections before that date. So to the best of my knowledge, no date has been set for the next election in Haiti.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. We'll now proceed to Madame Fortier.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et merci.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for being here with us today. I know that you were not given much advance notice, but we do, or much time, but I do appreciate having this opportunity to have this conversation about the situation in Haiti, which is a very difficult one. We all understand that. I'd like to take some time to discuss how to engage the Haitian diaspora here in Canada in coming up with solutions, or how are we working with the Haitian diaspora? It's my privilege to have many members of the Haitian community in Montreal. I know there's, and in my community as well. I know they want to make a difference. They're very concerned with what's happening in their homes. So do you know how to engage the diaspora, or how we have been engaging the diaspora since the beginning of the conflict and again still today?
Notre stratégie d'engagement avec
Our strategy for engagement with the diaspora calls for regular contact with immigration assistance organizations, Haitian churches, international partners, and international political advocacy organizations. This is in addition to departmental engagement. For example, this very afternoon, Minister Annan is going to be meeting her Haitian counterpart, Omar Jalagnu, to discuss the crisis in his country and to reiterate the importance of engaging in dialogue with all sectors of society. I'd also like to emphasize the fact that our Canadian ambassador to Haiti, André-François Giroux, is in regular touch with representatives of the Haitian diaspora in Canada. Is there anything else that you think we could be doing so as to pursue this engagement in the immediate future or in the near future? We know that the minister is going to be giving a speech, and we, of course, perhaps cannot discuss that, but how can we continue to work with the Haitian diaspora, which still today is lobbying the government, or even in Haiti, to ensure that things move forward? Because, as has already been said, we know that it's a critical situation and it's a highly regrettable situation. Do you have any other situations and solutions to propose? Mr. Chair, in terms of what the government could do, unfortunately, that would be a political advice to the government. What I can tell you now, I could give you an example of what we've done, and to perhaps reflect upon the need to engage the diaspora in inflection points. Up till now, we've had engagement with the diaspora. The most recent from Mr. Joly was in November 24, before the elections here in Canada. At this point, as you've mentioned, it would make sense for us as a department and as officials to engage with the diaspora to discuss the UN resolution when there is a resolution to be approved. How much time do I have left? Is there anything else that you may wish to share with the committee? We may be able to make some recommendations, but I'm just opening the door to see whether you have any suggestions to make for us as a committee, given the situation. Chair, I would like to refer this question to my colleague Ian Miles, because he has worked on the Haiti archives for a considerable amount of time, and he may have some comments to make. Thank you for the question. I think that what you're already doing by demonstrating interest in the Haitian situation is as helpful, asking the right questions. It's a highly complex situation. There is no simple solution. So I think that we would welcome any conversation, including with the diaspora, to shore up ideas and our analyses and diagnoses and develop potential solutions. This is something that's very helpful to us in our work. Thank you very much. Mr. Duceppe, you have 2.5 minutes. Microphone, please. There's an elephant in the room here when you talk about Haiti, and that's arms trafficking. If gangs are as powerful as they are in Haiti, it's because they have access to weapons. And if it's not 100%, 90% of those munitions are coming from the U.S. territory. So right off the bat, I think that we could target access to arms for the gangs. But if our U.S. partners don't act to cut off their access to these weapons, we will never be able to resolve the security issue and the gangs' power in Haiti. Is the Canadian government putting any pressure on its U.S. partners to ask them to do everything possible to cut off this flow of arms? This is probably the very key to ensure a safe space in Haiti. In other words, cutting off the access to weapons for these gangs. Chair, we know that arms trafficking is a major problem and a major challenge in Haiti. The Canadian government's efforts to date have focused on training the customs officers to assist them. I'm sorry to interrupt. It's not that I want to be impolite, but I only have 2.5 minutes. The problem is coming from the U.S. I think that political lobbying by the Canadian government on our U.S. neighbors regarding that traffic, well, first of all, are there any conversations with the U.S. government, by the Canadian government, about this arms trafficking? And do you see this as key to ensuring a safer space in Haiti? In other words, cutting off arms access to the gangs? Chair, I think that there's no secret to the fact that nearly 100% of the weapons are coming from the U.S. This is something that the U.S. government is not denying. I think that they're increasingly aware of this. They're hearing it from us, but they're hearing it from everybody around the table. I think solutions are also complicated for them. In the context of our chairing the G7, we are working to intensify our efforts to support the Caribbean countries to strengthen marine surveillance. This is only part of the solution, but we feel that it's a very important element. Thank you very much.
Have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for being here today. I know some of my colleagues have asked this question previously. We know resources are scarce, and I think we can all agree that what aid is present should not fall into the hands of criminals. So, along those lines, we know nearly half of all Haitians are facing acute hunger. So, how does this government assess whether its current contributions to food assistance are effectively reaching the most vulnerable populations and actually improving food security on the ground?
Mr. Chair, international assistance is a key part of our effort up to right now. We have through the $450 million or more than $450 million that we have provided Haiti since 2022. A key element of that has been focused on food security in terms of delivering emergency food assistance to over 1 million people. Providing daily hot meals to school children, as I mentioned in my opening statement, and also providing training to Haitian farmers to help them increase their productivity of a variety of key products. Ian, I don't know if you would like to add to that.
Yes, Mr. President, I think one nuance that's important is while we often speak of the gangs controlling 85 to 90% of the capital, it really is influence that they have in that area. In terms of the actual space, it's estimated that it's 40 to 50% that they control fully. The others are areas where they're active and that they can actually pose a danger and pose an influence. So that does mean that there's parts of the capital where we can access through humanitarian assistance. Some are more easy than others. It also is important to remember that most of the country is not under the control of the gangs, right? It's really concentrated in the capital and some of the outlying areas around that. So in terms of our development assistance and our humanitarian assistance, much of it is targeting people in other parts of the country who otherwise will be cut off because they also rely on the capital for their ports and imports, etc.
So it's great you mentioned the fact that the ports are in the capital and the capital is controlled by the gangs. So I'm just curious, given there has to be ongoing food supply chain disruptions because of the gang violence in the port, and that obviously is causing an instability with the supply chain. So what steps is Canada taking to ensure sustainable access to food then, rather than just providing short-term emergency aid?
Mr. President, the supply of food is a critical area, and there's food that comes in through ports, but there's also food that's grown within Haiti, and they're both important. The ports are not all located in Port-au-Prince. The biggest ones are, and they're not fully controlled by the gangs either. They're part of that territory that are highly subject to risks of getting in and out. But there is food coming in and out of that port, or mostly into that port, and that's been critical. The same thing with other essential supplies. That's been one of the advantages of this multinational support mission that's helped the Haitian police to secure some of those routes. But they're not fully secured, and that's definitely a source of concern. We do have longer-term development projects aimed at enhancing livelihoods and promoting climate-smart agriculture through drought-resistant crops and so on. That's been critical to help ensure food supplies in other parts of the country. Even one of our largest programs done with the World Food Program, which is about school feeding programs, they're sourcing most of that food from local producers, so there's actually an economic benefit to that as well.
Thank you very much. And, you know, alongside food is part of an overall health, the health and well-being of the folks there in Haiti. So after the targeted attack on one of its convoys in March 2025, Doctors Without Borders, they were given the deteriorating security situation in downtown Port-au-Prince. They withdrew from an emergency center and trauma hospital. So quickly, to what extent are international humanitarian organizations currently able to operate in Haiti?
A quick response, please.
Mr. Chair, that's an excellent question, and that is one of our concerns, and one of our primary interests and needs that we recognize is to restore stability so that international organizations like Doctors Without Borders and others can safely operate in Haiti.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now move to Ms. Anita van Delben, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our officials. I just wanted to ask a little bit on the development and humanitarian side of things. I know that Canada not only is one of the largest donors, but we also have used our influence to be first in a number of areas, and then leverage other countries. So, for instance, the UNDP Basket Fund for Security, we were one of the first to come in at scale, and I'd be interested to know the impact that that's had on other donors then following suit. But more particularly, I know that it was mentioned earlier about sexual exploitation. During our first the previous G7 presidency, Canada initiated the Whistler Declaration, which has then led to codes of conduct and accountability in the area of sexual exploitation done by international organizations. So I was wondering if you could comment on the leadership role that Canada's playing, not just the dollar figures, but the fact that, as a country that has come in at scale early on in multiple different areas, including the food that you mentioned, the localization of the food system. If you could talk about Canada's, the impact that that's had on getting other countries to also come in at scale.
Mr. Chair, I think that's an excellent question from the member in terms of the role that we can play in terms of mobilizing. I think historically Canada has played that role in Haiti, and we have seen success in terms of bringing in other countries. We are currently the second largest donor in Haiti, and have also helped to encourage some of our G7 members, the OAS, and other members of the UN to get engaged. But in terms of the specific numbers, I turn it to my colleague Ian to cover those.
Mr. President, I think the question of leadership is critical, particularly in Haiti, because there aren't that many players. There's not many countries that maintain embassies, let alone direct bilateral development programs. We've often found ourselves working heavily with multilateral organizations, and that's been very helpful. In that sense, we've often been able to leverage those multilateral organizations because they often don't have the resources to do everything from their side. But there's not too many other players there where we can get them on board, and so that's a bit of a challenge. From our side as well, we have regular program evaluations, and one of the frequently recurring recommendations is to focus. Because there's a really high chance of dispersing our efforts. So increasingly, we've tried to work on root causes, trying to address root causes. So when we talk about security, we're talking about the immediate crisis. But ultimately, as one of the members mentioned earlier, we need to address root causes, and that brings us into the area of governance.
Thank you very, very much, because I did also want to talk about that intersection between humanitarian and security, and in particular referencing the same report that my colleague, Mr. Brunel Duceppe, mentioned in the Subcommittee on Human Rights, when we heard a lot of testimony about the situation of adolescents and youth who, because of the humanitarian situation, not enough food at home, not being able to support themselves, ending up in orphanages, even if they're not orphans, they get recruited as gang members. And so the pipeline into the gangs starts from the humanitarian side of things. And then for a lot of the girls, there's the transactional sex and the recruitment into sex work. I wonder if you could comment a little bit about the work that we and others are doing to make sure we aren't losing an entire generation of young people in Haiti because of this conflict.
Mr. President, the member has touched on a key area that we really struggle with, because it's an immediate issue in terms of the ongoing recruitment of young people and, as you say, extorted sex and so on from often very young, vulnerable people. But also this, the sense that if we succeed in our efforts to stabilize the country, we need livelihoods for those people. We need to help them to reintegrate into society. Many of them have witnessed atrocities. Many of them have committed atrocities. So we're conscious that that creates mental health challenges as well as very tangible economic challenges. One of the key partners that we've been working with, or at least we have been doing our comparing notes with, this UNICEF, who are very conscious of this, and we look at them as one of the leading thinkers in terms of how do you breach that, because it is an immediate problem as well as a future problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We will now begin our third round of questioning, beginning with MP Cramp-Newman.
Thank you. I think over the next several minutes, I'm going to do some follow-up because there's been a lot of really good questions here. But just to touch base on a question that my colleague from the bloc posed, was the CAF operations capacity playing a role in the decision not to put boots on the ground earlier?
Mr. President, I cannot speculate on that question. That's not something that I'm aware of. My understanding is that in looking at our options and what was being asked of us at the time, and in talking to our various stakeholders, both here in Canada and Haiti, we came to the conclusion that our efforts were best focused on trying to galvanize support from the international community, as well as continuing to do what we are doing in terms of international assistance in Haiti.
I'm understanding that many observers are pointing out that Canadian Armed Forces are suffering a widening commitment capability gap. So I was just curious on what the view of the department was on that capacity.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the member, you're asking me to comment on Canadian Armed Forces capacity. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's not the purview of the Ministry of Global Affairs Canada to comment on that. Okay. That would need to be someone from Department of National Defence or Canadian Armed Forces themselves. Fair enough.
In your introduction, you spoke to the very grave situation, and in the notes we were provided, it spoke to it's a perfect storm of suffering, which is extraordinarily tragic. Given the worsening situation and gang control, how can Canada ensure that aid is actually accessible to Haitians on the ground?
Mr. Chair, that's another excellent question. And I think that is something that, as Ian has alluded to in some of his answers, that we struggle with on a regular basis. From a very practical level, it comes down to the partners that we choose to work with. And increasingly, because of how complex the situation is, we are devolving to working with more multilateral organizations that have robust structures in place in order to be able to support the efforts that they have on the ground.
Thank you. Next, I'm curious as to what tools the government is using to actually track the dollars that are being spent, all 450 million plus since 2022. So could you speak to any measurable outcomes that Global Affairs is able to provide, that like where and how that Canada is actually making a difference? How is that tracked?
Mr. Chair, that is something that we do actively track. We do want to see value and obviously hope that the money that we're hope to ensure that the money that we're investing in Haiti does help the Haitian people, which is the point. As I've previously stated, we can state and we have tracked that our emergency food assistance has helped over 1 million people in Haiti. That we have provided, as I mentioned before, daily meals to 100,000 school children. That we've enabled, for instance, more than 65,000 women to access a variety of health services, and that we've trained a variety of, I think it's 330 CARICOM officers for SSM deployment. So we do track these things actively, but for more specifics, I might turn to my colleague, Ian.
Mr. President, just to add a few examples, because we do have rigorous results-based management systems that are part of what we do for all of our programs. And even under the trialing difficult circumstances in Haiti, we still insist on regular reporting. We track that. We ask difficult questions as well. But to give some sense, we're working on anti-corruption, for instance. And in that side, we're helping to provide legal system to over 10,000 victims, including 3,155 women. Helping women to access medical service who have been victims of sexual abuse is also a key thing that we've been doing, as well as psychosocial treatment for those people. In 2023 alone, we had 1.26 million people who received emergency food assistance. 74,630 children under 5 received malnutrition treatment out of 361,000 who were screened. So it gives you a bit of a sense of the numbers and the scale. I just would flag as well that one of the challenges is over 1.4 million people have been displaced from their homes because of the gang violence. So that poses additional challenge to how do you sustain and support those people as well when they're pushed out of their homes. So it is a very challenging situation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now go to Mr. Oliphant. You have 5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et je commence avec un
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to begin with the reference to Mr. Bruno-Duceppe regarding the necessity of this, with all the things happening in the world and the crises in Ukraine and in Palestine. It's complex here, but this is in our hemisphere. It's Canada's neighborhood is Haiti, so it's absolutely necessary to have this kind of a conversation. So thank you for your contribution today as well.
Our embassy and our diplomatic presence. We obviously have concerns. You've mentioned that there are many countries which have withdrawn. We have downsized our embassy. These are our personnel on the ground. How are we doing, and how are we ensuring the safety of our personnel?
Mr. Chair, well, our embassy continues to be fully operational under the leadership of our ambassador, André-François Giroux. But of course, as the member stated, one of our primordial concerns is for their safety, and so we do look at that very actively. And that is a key function of leadership that we look to the ambassador to comment on and ensure that we are doing what needs to be done to ensure the safety of our personnel on the ground.
And in terms of consular issues, we have dual citizens. We have Canadians living in Haiti. We have family members traveling. Are we able to keep up with requests for consular assistance?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that, yes, we are able to keep up with requests for consular assistance in Haiti. Obviously, our travel advice, which has been in place for a number of years, is not to go to Haiti, to avoid all travel there. But we are aware that there are quite a few Canadian citizens who continue to live in Haiti, and so we continue to provide them with services. Our advice to them is to have their documents ready and to obviously be taking care of themselves, and if they are able to get out of the country.
On Sunday, Canada signed a declaration that presented by Australia and a few other countries on the protection of humanitarian aid workers. This is a UN declaration. About 100 countries have signed it. I'm keenly aware that je pense qu'un médecin ou une infirmière
I think that a doctor or a nurse from Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, was killed last year.
I'm sorry, back and forth. Other aid workers that have been killed, does Canada have a role in protecting humanitarian aid workers in Haiti because we have a larger presence in some countries?
Mr. Chair, I'll defer to Ian on that question.
Mr. President, to respond to that question, I think, to my knowledge, the challenges that Médecins Sans Frontières had were particularly directed towards the people that they were caring, because they have to go in and out of gang-controlled areas, which means that there's always suspicion as to whether they're helping the gangs. And so that was one of the real challenges. From Canada's side, we tried to provide as much support as we could, particularly in terms of engaging with the Haitian National Police at the highest levels on a regular basis to raise our concerns, to look at how to create dialogue directly with humanitarian workers to discuss the protocols to avoid incidents happening. It's not straightforward. I'm not aware of any other situations or casualties, but it does mean that the enhanced security processes and protocols are cumbersome and they're very expensive, often involving movements in armored vehicles and so on, extremely expensive.
War is always more expensive than development assistance and governance assistance, so I hope we continue on that. Last question with respect to its neighbor and Dominican Republic and the border between Haiti and Dominican Republic and the security threats on the DR. Is Canada engaging with Dominican Republic? Are we do we help them with intelligence or security, or do we get intelligence and security information from the Dominican Republic, or what is that relationship like for Canada?
Very short response, please.
Mr. Chair, I can't comment on whether we're sharing intelligence back and forth with the DR, but I can say that we do have a very active bilateral relationship with them, and that obviously the situation in Haiti and its spillover effects to them is a key part of that. We are very grateful to them for their assistance.
Thank you. Monsieur Duceppe, vous avez 2.5.
Mr. Duceppe, you have 2.5 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Are you aware as to whether or not the gangs raging in Haiti now have connections with the gangs who are currently on Canadian territory?
We are under the impression that, yes, they do, as I mentioned in my opening statements, but that is a matter for the RCMP or Canadian Security Services, Public Safety to comment on.
Je comprends, mais est-ce que ce ne serait pas là un pas?
I understand, but wouldn't this be a step forward to block the various ways that they communicate? We're talking about money laundering and financial support, which would originate here and flow to Haiti. I understand that this is the RCMP, but isn't this part of a strategy as well for foreign affairs to realize that there's a problem with this?
Monsieur le Président,
Chair, I've taken note of the comment made by the honorary member. I can tell you that today we have introduced sanctions against 34 Haitians, and this had a significant impact. There are no measures here to fight money laundering. That's a question for other agencies. There's also the fact that Mr. Trump signed a decree which is depriving many of Haitians who are in the U.S. of their visa to remain in the U.S. Is this part of the conversations that Canada is having with the U.S.? I understand that the U.S. wants to make a difference in Haiti. But if they expel Haitians from their territory, I would imagine that Canada is having discussions with our U.S. partners in terms of the consequences that this could have. Mr. Trump signing this decree regarding for Haitians on U.S. territory. Chair, we are aware of the comments that President Trump made regarding Haitians in the U.S. Up until now, this is not something that Mr. Trump has talked about with us. And if it comes up, it should be a political issue for the Department of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, there's no more time.
Abul Taif, you have 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur. Canadians are watching. This is a public session, basically. How well do we understand the network of gangs in Haiti? I'm talking as Canada.
Mr. President, as Global Affairs Canada, that's not something that we track directly and actively, at least that I am aware of in my position. That would be a matter I would for another witness or perhaps from someone from public safety or the RCMP to comment on.
Obviously, I'm not throwing this to foreign affairs by intention, but I mean, foreign affairs represent Canada on the table in order to figure out what we're going to do of financial aid or whether we're going to participate in troops on the ground, whether we're going to do, or even on a diplomatic mission. How can the department have lack of feedbacks on such an important thing, knowing that we are walking into fields full of mines, and that's something that really can be disastrous for any mission to figure whether, again, financially or otherwise.
Mr. Chair, we have been involved in, as Global Affairs Canada, in an interdepartmental strategy to disrupt gangs with the RCMP, the Canadian Armed Forces, and Department of National Defence in order to carry out that disruption strategy. And it drew from analysis from a Haiti integrated intelligence cell with the intention of disrupting gangs in Haiti, of supporting the Haitian National Police to disrupt gangs in Haiti. And of course, our international programming has also focused in terms of international assistance on interrupting sources of funding and arms in Haiti as well, predominantly through UNODC funding that we've provided, UNODC being the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, as well as training that we provided. We funded through the International Organization on Migration for both training and equipment to help surveil criminal activities.
We know that on the expansion of the MSS to more of a permanent peacekeeping mission, Russia and China, as a Security Council members, are not in agreement of that initiative. What is Canada's position, if you can advise us?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that within the UN Security Council, these discussions are ongoing in terms of the resolution, and that a vote will take place before the end of the month. I'm not aware of various members, all members' positions, but we understand that a variety of members have had questions and are in direct discussions with the United States on those. Not being a member of the UN Security Council, obviously we do not have a vote, and so we're not consulted directly in terms of how we would vote but certainly we are engaged in full-on diplomatic efforts to try and encourage members to vote for the resolution, as we do feel that at this point in time it represents the best strategy going forward.
When Monsieur Duceppe, mon collègue, asked a question about if the gang network of Haiti has any roots or branches in Canada, and the answer was kind of, it's not your department. You kind of refer to public safety in this fashion. Are we aware of any branches to these gangs outside Canada in other countries that we know of or we work with?
Do you want to take that? Mr. Chair, I guess in a general sense, yes, we are aware that there are links between criminal networks across the region and across the world. Transnational crime is increasingly integrated, and we are aware of that in a general sense. But in terms of specifics for Haitian gangs, I turn to my colleague, Ian.
I can't add too much to that. I mean, essentially, there's growing links between the Haitian gangs and pre-existing cartels in places like Colombia and Mexico. We know that there's traffic of weapons going through the Dominican Republic. We've also been hearing reports of growing linkages with gangs in Jamaica. Now, I don't see those as branches of Haitian gangs. I believe they're linkages between separate gangs. But again, it speaks to this issue of the regional nature of the conflict and the spillover that's there. And the kind of chaos that exists in Haiti right now makes a really attractive base for international or transnational crime.
In our diplomatic mission, how well we are prepared to put sanctions to go after countries that do support these gangs out there.
Very short response, please.
Mr. Chair, up until this point, the sanctions that we have been putting in place with regards to Haiti have been targeted to Haitian individuals. As a country, we seek to align our sanctions policy with the United Nations. In terms of putting sanctions on other countries with regards to Haiti, this is not something, the transnational crime organizations that are working there, this is not something that I believe has been discussed until this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abultaif. If all the members agree, I'd like to ask one round of 5-minute question period. Is that fine with everyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your indulgence, colleagues. I'd like to just begin by asking about the use of social media by some of the warlords, essentially broadcasting live their horrendous activities, extortion, violence, beheading people. To what extent do you believe that the social media platforms can take more steps to kind of prevent the warlords from profiting from those platforms?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Interesting question, and not one that I've personally come across before, but obviously we are aware of how these warlords are using the social media in order to get their message for recruitment, as well as to promote what they're doing, and also to, I think, spread terror in order to increase their profile. In terms of speaking with the actual social media organizations, in terms of controlling that, that's not something that I, as a witness, am best placed to speak to, unfortunately.
So what I'm specifically referring to, just as a clear example, is the use of Facebook Live to have the main warlord actually performing violence and committing violence against civilians, and using that platform repeatedly. So I'm actually concerned that, I mean, there's a video of a beheading by the warlord of a civilian on Facebook Live, and it's not once, it's not twice, it's a number of times. So these social media platforms are being used to amplify and terrorize people. So is that, again, you may not be tracking this, but is that something that the department is tracking?
Mr. Chair, unfortunately, that's not something that I am able to comment on. If you would like us to take that back and consult within the department, if it is something that we as a department are tracking more broadly, we'll be happy to do that.
My second question is on the Dominican Republic. How porous is that border with respect to guns being sent to Haiti through the Dominican Republic?
Mr. Chair, I'll pass the floor to my colleague Ian Miles.
Mr. Chair, the border with the Dominican Republic is a long one and a difficult one to control. There's irregular movement of people, but also materials and illicit materials between it. This is a source of concern, I think, for both governments. We've been providing support through programs where one of our programs, anti-crime capacity building program, that's been providing support to the border control agencies on the Haitian side to try to look at how to reduce that flow. It's very difficult because, as you know, in traffic of weapons, it's linked to corruption. It's linked to lower level, law enforcement officers who are bought off by large sums. So it's not an easy one to control, but it is a challenging area, both in terms of the migration as well as arms trafficking.
And follow-up question: where are the guns or weapons coming from that transit through the Dominican Republic to Haiti?
Mr. Chair, I don't have detailed information, but the understanding of most people working on the file is that the origins of the weapons are originally from the U.S. They're manufactured in the U.S. How they reach the Dominican Republic is something I'm less clear on because the routes are now not necessarily straightforward.
Is it your opinion or the opinion of Mr. Richardson? This is a question for both of you. Do you think that that the Dominican Republic can do more to interdict those weapons?
Mr. Chair, I know that it has been a topic of discussion between our government and the Dominican Republic. They've definitely shared with us efforts that they're making to strengthen their ability, particularly at their ports of entry, with additional scanners and things like that to try to intercept it as it enters their borders. I'm afraid I don't have much more information that I to share at this point.
Thank you very much. We will now go to our fourth round of questions, starting with Mr. Majumdar.
Thank you for this. I wanted to pick up on this thread that has been raised by my colleagues, Mr. Brunel Doucette and Mr. Abu Taif. You mentioned earlier, Mr. Richardson, that you don't have a good sense on the criminal activities in Haiti. I want to give you a chance to respond to that. Can you give me a portrait of the criminal activities that happen in Haiti as it relates to the politics and power structures of that country?
Mr. Chair, I didn't intend to give the impression that we as a ministry don't have a good understanding of that. I myself have started in this job 3 weeks ago, so I'm learning as I go and on trial by fire, so to speak. But I'll turn to my colleague, Ian Miles, to cover that question.
Mr. Chair, it's a difficult situation to summarize briefly, but as I mentioned earlier, the origins of the gangs are essentially private armies that were developed working at the behest and paid for by different members of the political and economic elite. When the government fell and there was this gap, what changed was those different gangs who normally had been fighting each other formed an alliance to have a common enemy, both with the Haitian National Police and the international multinational security support mission, and the transitional authorities that are in place. So in April of 2024, a negotiation was had in this vacuum to establish transitional government with a mandate to restore security and prepare the ground for international elections by the end of their mandate in February. And so they have become the main focus of attention from these gangs. But ultimately, our understanding is there's no political motivation there whatsoever. It's essentially a criminal one. And so the status quo is actually working quite well for the gangs because they have almost full reign to
I appreciate what you're saying, and sorry for interrupting, but in the interest of time, when gangs subvert the legitimacy of a government that end up diverting billions in aid, at some point new tools need to be used to confront them. Do you think we watch in Washington a lot of movement toward using the same instruments, the same tools to confront terrorism being applied to international crime? We know that there is a human trafficking operation from Haiti to Canada of people who are abused horribly. Do you think that it is time for us to bring new tools, new focus to dismantling the people who have been denying the Haitian people their representation, their legitimacy for well over a decade now?
Mr. Chair, as I stated in my opening remarks, we are at, or alluded to, we are at an inflection point, and we are just by the fact that the mandate of the MSSM comes to the end on October 2nd, we are at a point where we have to think about what the next step is and what the successor to that mission is. And in terms of the U.S. approach, they have announced both the gang suppression force, so a real focus on that element, as you have noted, member, as well as putting in place logistical support to help support that.
Thank you. You know, the economic elite that Mr. Miles described were created by the aid diversion of the last decade. In many ways, people who have been profiting and maintaining their positions in power have done so at the behest of the gangs that supply them. I don't think that's an intelligence report issue. But in my mind, has the international system that has been focusing on Haiti for 10 years failed? And is it not now time to start rethinking exactly how these violent groups can be confronted using the same tools that we use to confront terrorism as well as international crime?
Mr. Chair, I think we all agree that we are at a point where the situation is horrible for Haitians on the ground, and that we need to be focused on solutions that seek to address both the very real security and humanitarian crises that they face, as well as ensure that we are advancing our national interests. In terms of using the same tools that we use to address, or the Americans use to address terrorism in this particular instance, that's not something that I'm able to comment on, as that's not been part of our discussions thus far. The focus really has been on trying to support this resolution and to put in place the Gang Suppression Force and the UN Support Office. I would note that the Gang Suppression Force, that is meant to be quite a step up in terms of size and scale compared to the MSSM. Going from...
Thank you very much. We'll now turn to Mr. Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Richardson, we're aware, of course, that since 2022, the United Nations and then Canada, through its own autonomous sanctions regime, established certain regulations in order to control arms, to create an arms embargo, travel ban, and asset forfeiture and seizure regimes, naming now, as you said, 34 individuals. I'm aware as well that in March of this year, by Government and Council order, the Government of Canada brought forward additional regulations, naming additional individuals. And at the time, it was stated that these additional sanctions are necessary to exert immediate pressure on persons who either directly or indirectly engage in activities undermining the peace, security, and stability of Haiti, and have participated in gross and systematic human rights violations or associated with someone who's committed such acts. I wonder if you're able to provide us with any update as to how these new regulations have perhaps created greater authority for the Government of Canada to deal with these criminal individuals.
Mr. Chair, on that specific question, I'll turn to my colleague Ian Miles.
Mr. Chair, the use of sanctions by Canada, again, is not done in a vacuum, in the sense that an important part of it is trying to build critical momentum with others. So the UN sanctions tend to be the most powerful ones because by law they have to be implemented by all member states. And so certainly that's important to us. That each country some countries have their own autonomous sanctions regimes, and so we work closely with them, notably the US. The European Union tends to be the mechanism for members of the European Union. So we share information, we share our plans, we speak in advance to try to determine what will be the most effective way to implement the sanctions. Enforcing them takes different shapes in different places. And it's not straightforward. One of the most powerful dimensions is making it harder for the people who have been sanctioned to move around or to move their resources around. In terms of immediate impacts of those, we are aware that from the responses of those who have been sanctioned by Canada, that the complaints are about the impacts on their political careers as well as on their businesses, which to me tells us that the sanctions are having the desired impact. The intention is at least to make initial steps at combating impunity and making sure that people who, not just gang leaders, but those who finance and support them and cause disruption in the country, there's going to be consequences for them and their families for carrying out those types of acts or holding their country's interests in contempt, essentially, in favor of their own personal interests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miles. My next question, we are aware of the Transitional Presidential Council and the work that it's undertaking. I think ultimately the goal would be to create a politically stable Haiti with functional military, police, and other social services in that country. I think it's a long way off. Can you perhaps suggest, because I know it's a multidimensional crisis, and we speak primarily about the humanitarian crisis and the security concerns, but ultimately, if we are going to be able to support democratic governance and institution building in Haiti beyond the immediate crisis, could you perhaps share with us a little bit of what you see as Canada's role in helping to support the development of those supporting democratic governance and institution building initiatives?
Mr. Chair, I think I would simply recognize that that is getting at the heart of the matter in terms of long-term solutions for or efforts to try and improve the situation in Haiti. In terms of the Transitional Presidential Council itself, it is mandated to restore security and organize elections, as we've said, by February 2026. But, you know, in terms of our view as legitimacy, that will be based on the concrete actions that it takes in terms of restoring security, organizing credible elections, and fighting corruption and delivering basic services. But in terms of how we see that and how that fits into our specific programming, which is all wrapped up around that, I would defer to my colleague, Ian.
Very, very short response.
Indeed, I think addressing the root issues is critical. We can't focus just on the short term. I think we have to have clear eyes to know that we won't overcome an entrenched culture of corruption overnight, and the corruption happens at many different levels. I think that part of the work we're doing now to increase the ability of relevant organizations to conduct investigations and then prosecute them is a key part of that. Also reinforcing the institutions that have those mandates. But it's not easy to do. It's not an easy country to stick your head up in favor of transparency or justice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Monsieur Duceppe, you have 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Donc,
Thank you, Chair. We know a lot of things. The main issue in Haiti is the safety and security of Haitians who are living under the gangs. And we know that Canada wants to play a main role in Haiti and its foreign affairs strategy. And we know that there are connections between Haitian gangs and people who are present on Canadian territory. So given that we know all of this, logically, the Department of Foreign Affairs should be implementing a foreign affairs strategy for the Haitian situation, which includes the issue of the links between Haitian gangs and people who are helping them from Canada. No? Because I understand that earlier you said that we have to look to the RCMP. But if we want to play a role and there's an issue of gangs, well, you've understood my question. If I may respond, Chair. We work closely with the RCMP and have been doing so since the beginning. From the beginning of the crisis, we adopted a transdepartmental approach, working closely with the RCMP and the Canadian Armed Forces and the Defense. We still have members of the RCMP working on site in our embassy as liaison officers who are working closely with us and with the local police and security forces. They cannot share with us all of the steps that they are taking, but we are very aware of the fact that they're actively working on this aspect. Clearly, their interests are not only local in Haiti, but they wish to understand potential connections to Canada. You have 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I'd like to thank you for the light you've been able to shed today, and I would give you an opportunity to tell us what Madame Anna is going to say this afternoon. You could tell us first here. We're all ears. Chair, I would like to be able to share with you, but the truth is that I'm not available to share exactly what the minister is going to communicate during the session that she will be co-chairing with her Haitian colleague. Thank you very much.
Newman.
With your comments suggesting that the efforts are focused on the resolution right now, I'm just curious. As we're aware, Canada is the second largest contributor of cash to Haiti, after the U.S., of course. Is there coordination with the efforts with the Americans?
Mr. Chair, certainly we do coordinate our efforts closely with the Americans in terms of both the international assistance that we have been providing traditionally, but as this resolution itself has been presented by them, we are coordinating our efforts with them in terms of trying to support its passage. I would just like to go back to something that the member said and say that our efforts are not solely focused on passing the resolution at this time. Obviously, our programming on the international assistance realm continues alongside.
Are we aware why U.S. excluded Canada in favor of Panama when they were developing and submitting their plan to the Security Council?
Mr. Chair, that's simply because we're not a member of the UN Security Council at this time.
Okay, fair. Changing lanes, has the dynamic shifted between the gangs themselves? Is there still infighting, or has there been a cohesion of certain gangs, or is it all one or the other, or has there been coordination with any of the politicals or elites?
Mr. Chair, to the best of my knowledge, I think the situation continues to be extremely fluid in terms of how the gangs are operating. As we've commented previously, there are ties to the elites, and there are different alliances at different times depending on the interests of the gangs themselves. But at this point, I turn to Ian if he has anything else to add on that point.
Mr. Chair, I can only say that this is certainly something that's followed very closely by the different law enforcement agencies and also intelligence agencies.
And maybe a pipe dream, but following up to a question from my colleague, beyond immediate humanitarian assistance, too often we look short-term. So I'm just curious if you're familiar or comfortable to share what Canada's long-term plan would be for supporting governance and rebuilding institutions and reducing Haiti's ultimate dependency on external aid.
Mr. Chair, that's an excellent question. Oftentimes we get accused of being too forward-looking, in fact, and not focused enough on what's happening immediately. I think in terms of the international assistance and our engagement strategy with Haiti, it has been developed in such a way that it does try to look long-term to try and address the security stabilization piece, but also to build up robust democratic institutions, a judicial system that works, and to support social services to Haitians that actually give them the services that they need.
Okay, perfect. I think with time running close, I'll have you an open-ended question as to any particular lessons that we have learned as Canadians moving forward, or that can be applied moving forward.
Mr. Chair, I'll defer to my colleague Ian on that question.
Mr. Chair, I think the key lesson is to not underestimate the scale of the problem and the need to stay engaged over the long term. There was the previous international UN-led mission was there for, I think, 13 years. And when they left, many were saying it's too early. And we're here a few years later wondering if we should put another one in. I think part of that is not just because it takes a long time, but also there is this tendency to look at the security as if it's an independent thing rather than looking at this ecosystem of the power structures and the economic dynamics. To give one example, the existence of so many economic monopolies is a source of great concentration of wealth, and that holds the country back, but it also leads to corruption and fighting among those who want to control those monopolies. So economic reforms are part of that picture, legal reforms are part of that picture, transparency as well.
Thank you very much. We will now go to Madame Fautier.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Alors, c'est intéressant parce que
Thank you, Chair. It's interesting because my colleagues have, in fact, covered many of the themes that I would like to raise. But there's one that I'd like to explore further. Given that Canada is coordinating efforts with international partners, is there anything that hasn't yet been said about this coordination with international partners? I'm referring more specifically to what you quickly mentioned earlier, the Organization of American States. And what is their role? What role can they play in this situation, or what role could other multilateral partners play, or other international partners and allies? If you'd like to comment on this. Chair, we believe that this kind of organization could play an important role, such as the OAS. There's just been a resolution supporting the UN effort and that of the UN Security Council, and above all, this resolution proposed by the U.S. and the Panamanians. To us, they're partners also for delivery of international assistance. For more details, I would give the floor to my colleague, Ian. Chair, I would like to respond to the portion of the question regarding the Organization of American States. They've been present for a considerable time, but they passed a resolution a month or two ago emphasizing that this should become a priority for the organization and for its member states, recognizing that Haiti is their neighbor and it's in their mandate. Historically, their strength has been in promoting elections and democracy and promoting these reforms. Do they have a role to play in terms of security? I think the answer is not really. That's not really in their mandate nor in their capacity. But recently, they published a roadmap, a very ambitious one, talking about what they want to do. The maritime safety issue is part of this roadmap. But this is just the very beginning to see what the added value will be. It's possible that that could be the role to help coordinate and in capacity building for the region's countries, because we don't want to do everything. It's countries such as Jamaica have to have capacity to patrol their own borders and the waters in their regions. Thank you. We know that the minister is going to be speaking this afternoon, and of course you can't tell us now, but perhaps after she has spoken, if you have any thoughts that you would like to resubmit to us in the framework of this study. I'm launching the invitation now because we would be interested to see whether there is any way for this committee to propose either recommendations or ideas. So I would invite you after the minister has made her speech, if there's anything the committee would be prepared to receive, either a letter from you or if you have any other means of sharing this with us. Thank you.
Colleagues, we don't have time for another full round, but if there's one or two questions that someone needs to ask, here's your opportunity. Monsieur Duceppe.
Thank you. Very kind of you. We know that in 2022, Canada had over $80 million in the MSSM mission. The Kenyan President, Mr. Ruto, recently paid tribute to these conversations regarding the succession of the mission, but also said that he regretted that they didn't have the necessary means to fulfill the mission completely. The results were underestimated. So we put in 80 million. You must have updated the program or had updates. Well, sorry, I wasn't prepared exactly for this, but how would you assess the results of this $80 million spent by Canada on this mission? Do you have any accounting from the department in terms of the money that was spent by Canadian taxpayers on this mission? Chair, I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Ian Miles. Clearly, we can't say that the results achieved were the desired results. The crisis is still acute as it was a year ago. But we can also see that the authorities, the transitional authorities, are still there. This wouldn't have been possible without the presence of the mission. And we talked about maintaining access to the ports so that food could continue to enter and have basic needs come into the country. So this was made possible. Probably that would not have been possible otherwise. There were deaths, but it's not clear, of course. It's clear that the new mission proposed in the resolution is not a magic solution. There are going to be challenges because for part of the cost, depending on voluntary contributions, is real, especially if we want to increase the force from 1,000 to 5,500 people. That's a challenge. And that's why this afternoon there's an attempt to mobilize resources to have other people put up money, not just the U.S. and Canada. There are other contributors, but not at the same scale as we are. If I may ask a final follow-up question. With respect to that $80 million invested and the results obtained, I wonder that I imagine there are documents or reports of the department which draw lessons from what was invested and the results obtained based on these investments. Does such a document exist? And if so, will these reports be used to improve the impact of Canadian investments in foreign affairs matters? I can tell you that the mission per se evolved considerably since the beginning of my involvement in this. We're talking about 1,000 people. There were only 400 until January. Only 400. And now we're up to 1,000. We got up to 1,000 only in February. So that's not that long a time. The lack of personnel, the lack of equipment, these were limitations. And it's still a challenge, but we have seen true improvements. There are lessons to be learned, and we don't know what the future of the mission is and where it's going to go. Our role, yes, we've seen this as a large sum of money. $80 million is substantial for Canada. I would estimate that it's less than 10% of the cost of the mission. Really, the U.S. have done the most. Largely, they funded the bases, equipment, food. They don't always have visibility on that. So to separate the results produced by our contribution from those that were produced from the mission as a whole is quite a challenge. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the witness again. It's been 2 hours. U.S. is leading the charges basically as far as Haiti. Seems also the problem to be the Americas problem, more or less. Now, U.S. is suspending any new aids for international development, which means that's going to affect, obviously, every fund going. And there's more demand, of course, on more money, especially if it's going to be the biggest mission or bigger mission for Haiti. Do you know or are you aware if Canada was asked to put more money into this mission?
Mr. Chair, with respect to the question, we are obviously concerned about the vacuum that the lack of U.S. aid will leave. We are currently, as we've stated, the second largest foreign supporter of Haiti at this time. I think in terms of looking at what they're proposing and in terms of what is in Haiti's, what is necessary to try and provide security and stability for the Haitian people, it does really address one of the key issues, which is trying to provide a stabilization, a stabilized security situation through both this hybrid gang suppression force, which would be much larger than the current MSSM, as well as a key piece of that has really impeded the success of the MSSM is the UN Support Office. So on the one hand, while as the member stated, USAID is withdrawing its assistance, the U.S. leadership here is both drawing from experience in terms of some of the challenges that the MSSM itself has faced in terms of trying to put forward a solution or a response that will be more stable and sustainable in the long term.
Yeah, your response asking me to read between the lines. The question is very clear. Are you aware of any request to Canada to increase participation, financial participation in this mission? Yes or no?
Mr. Chair, at this time, the discussions really are focused on, and our efforts are focused, and that's what I can speak to, our efforts and what we're doing, focused on trying to pass the resolution and encouraging the passing of the resolution within the UN Security Council. In terms of what Canada's contribution would be after the fact, that is something that I can't speak about at this time, as it remains a matter of ongoing discussions at this time.
Yes, I mean, I get three-quarters of an answer. That means there's something going, but you're not willing, or you don't want to speak about it, or you can't speak about it at the moment. Is that what I understand?
Mr. Chair, what I'm saying is that I can't speculate about what Canada's response and engagement will be with the gang suppression force or what that will look like. At this point in time, we don't know whether the resolution will pass. Obviously, we will be a key contributor to the UN Support Office through our assessed contributions. That's something that is a given, should it be passed. And in terms of the gang suppression force itself, we have been asked as one of the key contributors to Haiti, along with the other members who have been supporting the MSSM thus far in the United States, to be part of what they've called the Standing Group of Partners to oversee the gang suppression force that has been proposed to put in place. That we have come out and said that we will form part of that. That's essentially a governance body, a bit of a coordination body for the force. But in terms of what Canadian support could be going forward after that, that's something that hasn't been contemplated yet at this time.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Mr. Richardson and Mr. Miles for your testimony today and for appearing for this study. That concludes this meeting. Is it the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting? Yes. Yeah, thank you.